Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to review the whole feature and then wait for, if you could wait to the end to ask your questions. We do have a lot to cover. There's a couple a little pieces of information that I want to cover first. And then we'll go ahead and get started with the ABN feature. Okay, so the first thing is this ABN feature is only available to the Apacheta customers with Brightree integration. So the ABN feature, as you all know, is housed within the Brightree sales order items tab for each line item. And that is where we're pulling the information from into our system. Okay. Secondly, there is no additional monthly cost associated with this feature. If you would like this enabled, please email support@apacheta.com. Once you submit your request, the ABN feature will be enabled in your client configuration for your database. And currently, it is only for Android users. The iOS release will be made shortly. So currently, just keep in mind, it is only for Android. If you are an iOS user, you can ask to have the integration turned on, and we will hold that request until the release for iOS is made. Okay. Two small pieces of information from a Brightree standpoint. Brightree is going to be making some sort of minor release regarding the ABN around the 20th of the month. And this has to do with the ABN copay amounts. And when you're using Brightree as an ABN upgrade. You have to, for the copay amount to show up inside of the ABN workflow on our mobile devices, make sure you preview your sales order, meaning your delivery ticket and your ABN first before hitting send POD. So when you're checking off either the ABN or the ABN upgrade, make sure you hit print preview before you hit send POD. It's something we found when we were using the release. We sent it over to Brightree. They're being gracious enough to make that update very quickly. So look for that around the 20th. With the ABN upgrade, if you don't hit that print preview, this item name will be removed and also the reason, and it won't transfer over to the ABN. So just, that's in around a week, they should be making that update, and everything should be working perfectly at that point. Okay. One other thing I would like to mention. Medicare ABNs per CMS requirements are typically to be discussed prior to making a delivery. So when we built the ABN, that is how we thought about the workflow. A patient is calling in, you're completing your Brightree sales order. Based on the requirements of the equipment, you think that a Medicare ABN is needed. So it should be discussed during intake, and the ABN itself on the mobile device is to be presented for recording of the option selection, so option 1, 2, or 3, and a signature capture. So keep that in mind as we're going through the system. Okay, so I've already built myself a trip with orders from Brightree that need the ABN signed. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my mobile device. And I have different scenarios that I'm going to run through so you can see how this works. And then we will open it up to questions. Okay, so my first order on my mobile device, this is going to be a very simple sales order with a regular ABN where the provider is accepting assignment, and I believe it's only for one item. So I've done my pre-trip and I've done my load screen, and I'm going to service my first order. So I'm servicing my stop. And I apologize because my screen is going to lag here a bit. I'm using SODI to mirror my device. My delivery notes pop up on the screen. And I'm going to start drive and arrive to get to my service stop screen. So this delivery is for an oxygen concentrator. So when an ABN is needed and you have indicated that in your Brightree sales order by marking either the ABN or the ABN upgrade box, you are now going to see this ABN indicator next to each line item. So if you have multiple items, whichever line item is indicated in ABN is needed, you're going to see that against each line item. The ABN is going to need completed, or you will not be able to service the client. Okay, so for this particular line item, it's an oxygen concentrator. With the Android, of course, you have your submenus, and you're going to hit ABN. A new screen is then going to appear, and this screen is going to appear, and we call this the ABN work list. So I'll just give it a second to change. And for however many line items you have, it will list all of your items that require an ABN. And we will generate an ABN for each individual line item. And they will have to select an option for each line item. So it's just not one option for every single item that needs an ABN on the delivery. You have to go through and mark each one. Okay, so you can see in the work list, it's telling you which line item it is. You have your sales order, and you have your patient name. You have your reason why Medicare can't pay, or may not pay, I should say. This is coming from that ABN reason box within your Brightree sales order, as well as your estimated cost. Okay, so at this point, you would present this to the patient, and they're going to need to make a choice. So you have option 1, option 2, option 3, and then there's an exception. So if the patient is maybe refusing to pick an option, there is an exception box. So for this particular order, I'm going to pick option 1. And once an option is picked for this line item, a check mark will appear next to the line item in green, and then you can hit save. This is going to take you back so you can continue with the rest of your sales order. So I'll just wait for the screen to change in SODI. And I'm going to go through and collect my serial number. And I'm going to go through and complete my required forms based on my sales order classification. So I'm going to speed up through this part so you can see the remainder of the ABN. Nothing with the forms or any other workflow inside of Transport ACE has changed. Just take me one more second to get through my forms, and then I'll move on to the customer tab. So the customer still only needs to sign one. There's no additional signature needed for the ABN. Just letting my screen catch up before I move on to my customer tab. You're going to notice on the customer tab now, there is a new box where the patient has to accept the ABN. So you can go ahead and go through your view consent, showing them the message on your delivery ticket. You can go through the stop summary. And show them what was delivered and the copay. And then you can show them the accept ABN button. And this is going to show them what the ABN looks like, so they can make sure that they have picked the proper option that they are comfortable with. And you'll notice at the bottom, if they want to change the option, they can hit cancel. If they accept the ABN, they're going to hit done. A little box is going to appear. And they have to accept it. So it says, I attest that the information appearing in the Medicare Advanced Beneficiary Notice is accurate and complete. So you hit accept. It's going to take you back to the signature box. And this will still allow you to capture your patient's signature and, of course, the date. You will pick your patient relationship, and you can still collect your email address, and that ABN, along with all of your delivery documents plus your delivery receipt, will all get emailed. Okay? Go on to my text signature. And hit serviced. It's going to ask me, of course, if all my forms are complete, and I'm going to hit yes. Okay? If you have the Get Paid HME mobile payment application enabled with the Apacheta integration, it will launch the payment screen. I'm going to hit cancel. And then I'm going to go on to my next stop. So before I go forward and show you a few other scenarios, I will hop into Transport Manager to see if my forms are in there. Might take a minute for them to come in. Oh, they're here already. So I will show you what the Medicare ABN looks like. Okay, so it is going to appear as a PDF file, and it is the compliant Medicare ABN. Okay. All right. So my next order I have on my list is also just a normal ABN, but this is when the provider does not accept assignment on an order. Okay, so I'm going to go through and do my start drive and arrive. Let my screen catch up. Okay, so I'm going to complete my ABN. So I chose my ABN option. And you'll notice now that because I am not accepting assignment, next to option 1, this line is now crossed out. So this is based on Medicare's requirements. Okay. I also want to show you what happens if I choose option 3. So I'm going to pick option 3 on this order. A little box is going to appear that says the selection of this option will reduce the item quantity to 0 and result in the item not being delivered. So option 3, of course, with Medicare means that they do not want the item listed. So if this option is chosen, you will still have to go through and complete the sales order because you want to get the ABN signed. So I'm going to hit yes. And you'll notice in a second here that my quantity for my item is changed to 0, and the items box is now checked off. Okay. If you have Forms Manager enabled, you're still going to have to go through your forms. Don't complete them though, just to test that they are done. This way you can get to the customer screen and they can accept the ABN and get that signature and also get the signed delivery ticket stating that you're not completing anything. When option 3 is chosen, please keep in mind that your Braintree sales order is going to update with an actual date of delivery, even though a delivery wasn't made. This is very important to watch for because you're going to have a quantity change, so make sure you're watching your POD work list and watching for those quantity changes to automatically happen to 0 if option 3 is chosen. Okay. If you go to the accept ABN and the patient then wants to maybe change their mind, that, okay, I now want to get this item, you can still transfer out of this. You hit cancel, you can go back to items and change the ABN. So it's going to be cancel, items, hit your sub menu, access that ABN, and they can pick a different option. Okay, so they can go back and maybe pick option 1. A box is going to appear that states selecting this option will restore the original item quantity. Are you sure? You can hit yes. and you can go back and then collect your serial number for your serialized items or your lot number for your lotted items. So if I hit save, I can go back and then add my serial number, and my item will be marked as delivered. Okay, and then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go to the customer tab and the tech tab and complete your sales order. Okay, my next scenario is about using an ABN with a generic item. Okay, make sure I have the right one. This one. Okay, I'm going to let my screen catch up here. I apologize. Okay, so if you are using generic items and you need to get an ABN signed, oops, this one doesn't have one. I thought this one had an ABN. I will speak to it. So if a item has a generic item, you will need to replace the item first before you can go through and do the ABN. This way you have an accurate description of the item on the ABN. So just keep in mind, generic items need to be replaced first, then the ABN can be completed. Okay. So I am going to open this up to questions. If you can, I believe from your webpage, or I'm sorry, your WebEx, you can either raise your hand. I can also take everybody off of mute on my end, and if there's any questions, feel free to ask. So I think that's what I'm going to do. If you want to put your phone on mute, I'm going to unmute you from WebEx, and then whoever has questions, we'll keep it very informal. Just feel free to speak up and ask your questions. Okay, so everybody is going off of mute right now. Okay, so does anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
My name is Thomas. I missed the first 10 minutes of the webinar. I'm curious, how do we attach the ABN to the item?
Okay, good question. All right, so from a Braintree standpoint, when you're building your sales order and you're adding your items, each line item in your Braintree sales order, you have the ability to indicate when an ABN is needed. And of course, Braintree has amazing training videos out there to help you with this if this is not something you currently do. But when you go into an item in Braintree, you have two checkboxes. There's an ABN and an ABN upgrade. So you get to pick which one you'd like to do, and then you get to type that reason as to why Medicare may not pay. It automatically attaches the appropriate modifiers for you. You'll hit save, and then right now you will need to hit print or print preview just to recycle, or I should say refresh your sales order, and then you'll hit send POD. Apacheta looks for that ABN indicator for you, and that's how the ABN workflow will come across into Transport 8. Okay, so it's no longer just a form on the tablet. It's actually an ABN workflow on the tablet that will generate the form just like we generate a delivery ticket. Okay? Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Any other questions?
Is the ABN going to be available in the forms library if we need to pull it on the fly for something?
That is completely up to you.
Okay.
If you currently do not have the ABN in your forms library and you would like that, you can submit that request to support@apacheta.com. They will put it in there. And then on the flip side, if you no longer want it available in your forms library, just email support and they will take it out for you.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Amy, can this be?
Go ahead.
Hey, Amy, I was just wondering when when it was going to be available for the iOS.
It should be very soon. I would think in the next couple days.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. With the iOS, like I stated at the beginning, that release is being made shortly. You can still request to have it turned on by emailing support@apacheta.com. And they will turn it on when that release is made. It is currently available for Android, though. Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, I've got it.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've got two questions. Can this be used for private pay patients? And also, how does this work for on-call orders?
Okay. So this is strictly the Medicare ABN. Okay. So, I believe in Braintree, it has to be the Medicare insurance. I know from being a past Braintree user, there was we never had ability to do any sort of Medicare ABN for any other insurances. If that has changed, I am not sure. I would suggest that you reach out to Braintree to see if that is something that can be done. But from our standpoint, this is strictly a Medicare ABN. It's the only integration with ABN that we have, and it does come from these two boxes on your Medicare or on your Braintree sales order for the ABN. Okay? From an on-call standpoint, if you think about the on-call workflow that we have on the mobile device, it is essentially an electronic form. It is not anything associated with a Braintree sales order because it's not being dispatched. It's basically taking your handwritten paperwork and making it electronic. So if they would need an ABN on the on-call, it would have to be in your forms library.
Can you show us what it would look like if they pulled it from the forms library? Do they have to fill out more information because there's no order
not put in there
in Braintree?
So from a forms library, let me just remote control my device again. It's going to be just a free form, just like they would complete any other form. There is certain information that we can pull in, like the notifier information, the patient's name. They would then have to select the equipment that they are completing the ABN for, the reason why Medicare may not pay, and the estimated cost. And then, of course, the patient's still going to have to pick a reason. So this is just taking a second here to remote control, but it's just like completing any other form. Okay, so you can see that we can fill out this information, but right here, they would need to select the equipment from the sales order. And if there's 10 pieces of equipment, they're going to have to know exactly which one needs to be picked. and then they're going to have to type in this box the reason why Medicare may not pay. And then you have the estimated cost, which is also a text box that they will have to complete. Okay. Any other questions on the actual ABN form?
I had a question.
Sure.
So when they complete the ABN, is it going to be date and time stamped prior to the rest of the delivery paperwork?
It is going to be, let me go back here and find the one that I did. It is I believe all the forms are date and time stamped, and it's going to be stamped accordingly. So I'm going to pull up my sales order in Braintree so we can take a look at what it looks like in BDM. Actually, I should be able to see it here inside of Transport Manager. And so, if you're using BDM, this form is also going to go back and be filed appropriately for you in the document type that you requested. If you're not using BDM, it will still go out to your FTP site. Okay, so this one, this is looking like it's just dated.
Okay, so we just did a BGM Medicare course, and their thing was you had to prove you went over this with the patient prior to delivering the equipment. So if it's not time stamped, how do we prove that?
That's a good question. I'm going to pull this up in Braintree Document Management. I'm not going to speak to billing practices as I'm talking about the workflow here. I would suggest that you go through and check out Medicare's actual packet on how to distinguish that.
Yeah, well, they told us if we get audited in your ABN, you can't prove that it was done prior to delivering your equipment, it's worthless. Which is why, so right now, we're doing paper ABN.
Okay. I have
date and time on it.
One other thing that I'm thinking might work. Okay. I know there are some indications of documenting that you spoke about the ABN, prior to delivery. And I want to check the trip event activity report.
Well, could I
inside of Transport Manager.
Could I add something here? What if they put the
Sure can.
What if they put the time? Put the time that they signed the ABN beside the date and just waited 2 minutes, to complete the whole form, the whole package of information in Apacheta, and then it would date the timestamp everything for 2 minutes after the date and time is actually on the ABN. That's a workaround, maybe.
You can definitely try that as well. This is the right one that I want to look at. Inside of Transport Manager, let me get down here. See which trip this is. We have we take date and time stamps of when everything was completed. And I'm just looking to see if it's in here. But, this may be a way to prove as well. If you can say, okay, this, the ABN has to be done prior to us marking anything as delivered, because it does. And the stop wasn't actually completed, or it wasn't. The stop wasn't completed until this time. So the ABN has to be done prior to that. So in the trip event activity report, you do have a date and time stamp of when the stop was actually completed. So that might help as well. Okay. Any other questions about the ABN?
Hey, Amy, it's Dana in Tulsa. I have one quick question.
Sure.
Are you and Brightree working on a training document that takes it from clicking the ABN button all the way through that you've shown us here today, so that we can staff training?
Yes, we will release. Apacheta will create a training document for completing the ABN.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, we will have that updated on our support page as well. Just as we're trying to update all of the documents. They're a bit outdated, still functional, but we will get one for the ABN.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, this is Eddie. I have a question. So if a customer has 3 pieces of items that they have to use the ABN form on, and when my delivery tech gets there and they refuse one of the 3, they just go to the option 3 to refuse that product, and then somebody else will have to follow up on the billing side of that. Is that correct?
Actually, if it's multiple items, and they're only refusing one of, say, the 3 items, and they pick that option 3, you can still complete your delivery for the other 2, and then it will indicate that which item was refused. It's going to flag the POD work list for you that item was then reduced to 0 because option 3 was picked, and they can follow up with just that one item. But you can still continue with the remainder of your delivery.
Okay, great. Yeah, because that kind of happens every now and again where they refuse one of the items or something like that. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Amy, I have a question.
Sure.
You were talking about time and date stamps. When we do this for our confirmation department, we run an agent activity report, which basically produces a manifest and it puts your time and date stamp. How long, what's the length of time in which Apacheta maintains that database with that information in there?
As far as I know, it doesn't get removed.
So if we get audited,
I believe you can go back and run it. You can run that agent activity report for any date that you want.
Okay, I was just concerned if we had. I mean, I could probably reproduce it on my end from emails, but I would like to be able to just basically go back in and pull that up and find that maybe a year from now.
I can definitely find out, but as far as I know, I don't think it gets removed.
Okay, thank you.
Amy?
Yes.
Would the timestamp issue be solved if they just by including the time on the data mapping letter J, the same way the delivery receipt has the date and time?
I can definitely ask the development team if that's something we can put in as an enhancement request.
Well, it's a Medicare form from Medicare. If it needed a time, it would have a spot on it for a time.
There's never been
it's never been a requirement that it needed a time. So that's why there's not a field for it.
Okay, so I think probably the best thing is to, decide what is best for each of your companies as a whole. This was largely requested enhancement from all of our clients, and we try to build it to best suit everybody's needs. So maybe discuss it with whoever your compliance officers are for your companies and decide how you would like to move forward if you feel that the time stamp issue is going to be a problem for you. Any other questions? Okay, so if you would like this enabled, please email support@apacheta.com. Please make sure you provide your company name or your client ID. Ask them to enable the ABN feature. If you are using Brightree Document Management, if you would like the ABN to go to a different document type than the ABN document type, also please include that in your email so your forms can be mapped accordingly. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. I believe I've spoken to almost all of you on this call previously. My email address is aswope, and that's S as in Sam, W-O-P as in Paul, E @apacheta.com. You can also email implementation@apacheta.com, and we can provide additional training for you if you feel that you need it. The release notes are on our support page that cover everything that I covered today. We will have training guides available in the next few weeks for the ABN. So if you need anything, please feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to help. Okay? So that is all I have for today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jess, can you hear me?